I don't know what you guys did this weekend, but we had a few conversations this weekend about Baltimore. There seems to be a few that's ongoing there.
Yeah, for folks that were at the beach, fill us in. What happened over the weekend?
Ultimately, we saw what Elijah Cummings at multiple committee hearings, first with Bob Mueller in those hearings, but also with Kevin McAleenan, mischaracterizing treatment of folks at the border, saying that kids are sitting in their feces, really going after the Trump administration. And in response to that, President Trump had some things to say about Elijah Cummings' own backyard.
That's right. He tweeted out, why is he... Elijah Cummings has been a brutal bully, shouting and screaming at the men and women of the Border Patrol about conditions of the southern border. When Baltimore, he says, the president tweeted on Saturday, is far worse and more dangerous. His district is considered the worst in the USA. And then the president was called a racist for this attack. And we're going to talk a little more about that. But just 14 minutes ago, the president is up and tweeting already. And he just tweeted this out. Baltimore, under the leadership of Elijah Cummings, has the worst crime statistics in the nation. 25 years of all talk, no action. So tired of listening to the same old bull. Next, Reverend Al will show up to complain and protest. Apparently, he is en route to Baltimore later today. Nothing will get done for the people in need. Sad.
Yeah, he basically said, if you're going to go over the border and be critical, look at your own backyard. You need to fix what's happening there. Elijah Cummings replied on Saturday by saying this: Mr. President, I go home to my district daily. Each morning I wake up and I go and I fight for my neighbors. It is my constitutional duty to conduct oversight of the executive branch, but it is my moral duty to fight for my constituents.
You know, the president this morning pointing out the predictable cycle. So here goes Al Sharpton headed to the scene to agitate on what he will deem to be racial issues, whereas the president is pointing out it's Democrats and liberal policies over the decades.
Right. The
federal funding that's been squandered in Baltimore, ultimately not making the lives of those citizens better. Does it really make it better to go agitate? That's the question the president's asking.
Well, I think the message is resonating with some of the residents, at least there. Listen to what this one lady had to say. She lives in Baltimore.
He has never done anything for not even one person that I know of. I never heard anybody say anything about him. And people want to talk about Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. Why is this man over there taking care of people at the border? We hungry. We need a place to stay. And it's just sad. He worried more about them than his own people. It breaks my heart to see this.
You see, we covered it this morning, and she went on, or this weekend, she went on to talk about how all the focus on the border, all the focus on illegal immigration, and what are we doing for those folks? What about the forgotten men and women in these areas of West Baltimore who've been left behind by liberal policies? What about us?
That breaks my heart. She said it breaks my heart. Imagine growing up in an area where it's so dangerous and there's so much violence and there are drugs being sold on the street. I mean, those are little kids that grow up in an area like that. Why are we spending so much money to take care of people who are not citizens, giving them sanctuary in California, paying for their insurance, when we need to use that money to go clean up the cities that are violent here in America?
I was talking to Fox News correspondent Peter Ducey, who covered the riots down in Baltimore back in 2014, 2015. And he reminded me that the security made sure that specified the only way he could be reporting from the street was for him to be wearing a flak jacket. They also specified at one point when he was about to do a live report, the security team moved him off the street to a secure location because there was somebody with the Molotov cocktail riding a bike down the street.
This is in Baltimore?
This was in Baltimore at the height of the riots. Mick Mulvaney, who said that this was, initially this was the president counterpunching back at Elijah Cummings, blast Congress for focusing on things like the Mueller investigation and not on the problems of that once great city of Baltimore.
I was in Congress for 6 years. If I had poverty in my district like they have in Baltimore, if I had crime in my district like they have in Chicago, if I had homelessness in my district like they have in San Francisco, and I spent all of my time in Washington, D.C. chasing down this Mueller investigation, this bizarre impeachment crusade, I'd get fired. And I think the president is right to raise that. It has absolutely zero to do with race.
Of course, they make it all about race. One of the guys we had earlier on the program, Dan Bongino, framed it so well, because you'll know Dan from this program. You may not have known he ran for the Senate in Maryland because he was passionate about the conditions in Baltimore and the great people of Baltimore who are suffering under the policy of Democrats. Listen.
Liberals have destroyed and decimated these cities. They have been a forest fire. You know, Pete, in the 1950s, Baltimore was one of the wealthiest cities in America. It has been driven into the ground by monopolistic liberal control. The government did this to people. There is nothing wrong with the citizens of Baltimore. These are people looking for safety and prosperity. And thank God the president brought the heat to these Democrat politicians who have destroyed those cities. When is the accountability going to start? It better start now. Don't dare run away from this argument. Anyone. It's long overdue.
There are a lot of problems in Baltimore, and you know the president has been pointing this out, and he has been roundly labeled by many on Twitter and on mainstream media as his comments being racist. But then you look at some of the things that other people have said in the past, and you wonder, well, was that racist?
Yeah, I wonder if Bernie Sanders will be asked about this statement he made in December of 2015. You know, they got debates coming up. They got an opportunity to ask questions. He said this about Baltimore.
Anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country. What we're talking about is a community in which half of the people don't have jobs. We're talking about a community in which there are hundreds of buildings that are uninhabitable.
Gosh,
What are you saying?
These politicians in Washington, my gosh, do they do anything? I mean, it's been, when they talk about immigration, the president's had to use executive orders, emergency funding to get something done to fix the immigration problem. When it comes to Baltimore, I mean, he has an opportunity to really clean up that city and look out for his constituents. What are they doing?
Here's the decision point. Okay, so we can agree on problem identification. If Bernie Sanders said that now, and President Trump said, clearly there's an issue there. The question is, how do you solve it? Democrats, as Dan Bongino pointed out, have controlled that
That's
city
what they need
for
to be focusing
70
on.
years, but it's always been more money, more money, more money squandered by local politicians, as opposed to economic opportunity zones, which this administration has worked hard on. Devastated places to bring them back to life. Charter schools, vouchers, giving people educational opportunity, to cracking down with real solid policing, community policing that's aggressive to make sure that those folks deserve safety just as much as anybody else.
So from what we've seen with the president's tweets, it does sound as if Al Sharpton is going to be
Here we
heading
go.
to Baltimore, so I would look for this story to continue at least another day. In the meantime, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was on